Hi, everyone. Happy Tuesday, and welcome to Cracking the Code to Employee Engagement Success through Strategic Initiatives. My name is Kaylee Hansen. I'm the Marketing Campaigns Manager here at GoCo, and I do any and all things webinars here. We are so excited to be joined today by Deb Calvert. Thank you so much, Deb, for hopping on this webinar. I'm so excited to hear more from you today. While we're getting started and having people roll in, I know I typically ask where people are from, but Deb and I were talking all about hobbies before everyone hopped on. So in the chat, just to get to know everyone, why don't you share what your favorite hobby to do outside of work is? I personally love collecting, so I have a lot of pop culture related collections all over my house. It's like a toy store. It's crazy. What about you, Deb? What hobby do you love to do?
I have a lot of hobbies, but this time of year it's all about gardening. Flowers and vegetables. My peas and carrots are already in. Love, love, love to garden.
Oh, I love that. I want to start a garden myself, so I might be coming to you for some tips and pointers. We have a lot of different hobbies rolling in, a lot of dancing, some pickleball, reading, walking the dog. I just love learning more about everyone. So thank you all for sharing and thank you all for joining us today. We're really excited to have you. Couple housekeeping things before I pass it over to Deb is that we will be sending out the recording after the webinar sometime this week, most likely tonight, if not tomorrow. And also at the end of the webinar, we will be sharing the SHRM and HRCI code, so make sure to be on the lookout for that. And with that, Deb, do you want to take it over?
Absolutely. Thank you, Kaylee. Thank you to everybody at GoCo for giving us this opportunity. Uh, we're going to be a little interactive today. So in just a moment, I'll be giving you some instructions on how to interact and participate in the slides. It's helpful to have a backup device. So unlike most trainers, I always say, hey, grab your phone. You're going to want it during the session. What I'm talking about today, and what I'm inviting you to interact about today, to me, it sometimes feels like a secret society. I know HR feels like that for a lot of different reasons, but sometimes it feels like HR understands what it means when we say employee engagement in a way that's so different from what everybody else is thinking about when they say or talk about employee engagement. They're talking about a survey, or they're talking about something that they roll their eyes with and say, oh yeah, we got to think about this, how do employees feel? And they don't understand the strategic implications and how important employee engagement really, really is. So I'm going to talk today about engagement. I'm going to share some research with you, give you some tips and some resources that you can work with. And what we're after here is heightened awareness for you to be able to have some ideas and language, maybe to share with others, some heightened awareness about what it takes to build and maintain high levels of employee engagement, why that matters so much. It's not just for the sake of engagement, but there are real strategic business implications. In fact, many of them that flow directly from and grow in success rates when you have higher levels of employee engagement. We'll be talking about how to activate managerial effectiveness by giving managers behavioral steps, real concrete things they can do to heighten employee engagement. And we'll talk about along the way things like burnout and negativity and resignations, if you're still experiencing a lot of those, and how to create an ennobling culture that naturally fuels and affirms all those efforts that you're making towards employee engagement. By way of introduction, I just wanted you to know that I do have an HR background. I've been in business for myself almost 19 years, but I came from a Fortune 500 HR director role. And I have worked with lots and lots of folks in human resources, as well as executives in other disciplines as an executive coach. The most important thing on this slide, though, is my email address. I hope that you'll take it down. I'll try to remember to put it back in the chat a few times for you, but it's there because I enjoy the follow-up conversations. We won't be able to get to every tangent or nuance that you might be experiencing, but I don't mind at all if you reach out to me and say, hey, Deb, I was on the GoCo webinar and you said this, and I was wondering about X. And we'll exchange some emails, or if it needs to, we'll jump on a call. I always appreciate those opportunities and encourage you to genuinely use my email address. Okay, now, the last time I presented here, which I believe was back in October, some of you may have been there, but we had a technical whoopsie at the end of it all. I was giving away actually a pretty good offer, but it didn't work. And so the people who hadn't taken down my email address had no way of reaching out to me. And we tried to do a few things, but I wanted just to give you that offer again in case you were there or in case this is of interest to you. If you're looking to create better connections in the workplace, to boost clarity, to give people an extra measure of control so they can work autonomously, I'd ask you to take a look at this book. It's on Amazon. It got released in September. But if you want an autographed copy and a free masterclass of 3 sessions, 90 minutes each, that's only $35. So that's what the link or the QR code here will take you to. I'm only saying that because I want you to have it if you came for it last time and weren't able to. I'll give you something all new today by the end. All right, that's our setup. Now we're going to do something interactive. And I see here that we have about 150 attendees, which means when we interact, I'm going to be looking for 150 responses. But this tool that we're going to use, it is very, very easy, and it's 100% confidential. There's no way for me to be able to tell who said what, but it is going to display your response in live time, whether we do a word cloud or open response or some other things. Easy to use, completely confidential, and you'll be able to steer me, like what direction should we take this conversation? You can also be putting some questions or comments in the chat. Kaylee's monitoring that for me, so if we don't get to them along the way, we'll try to take those at the end as well. To do this whole interactive thing outside of Zoom chat, though, this is a new QR code. It's not the same one that I just showed you. This takes you into our interactive thing called Menti. Menti.com is how you get there if you're not using the QR code. And I'll put that in the Zoom chat so it stays there with you. I will also be showing you, pointing out to you that on each slide where we're interacting, it'll be up there too at the very top of the screen. So it's menti.com and then our code 54592536. I promise it's easy and it's safe because it's all confidential. So let's get you geared up, get you into Menti, because I've got some questions I want to ask you just to practice and give you a chance to master it. I see many of you are using the thumbs up. That's it. It never gets any harder than that either. So here we go. Same codes at the top, menti.com. Where are you? Kaylee said she thought about asking you that. She did hobbies instead. So let's do it in a different format today. Just poke the map and press enter and tell us where you are today. We'll see where we get lots of representations from. Okay, a few folks outside the US. Jade, if you're able to kind of find Big Bear on the map, poke it on the map too by going to menti.com 54592536. That'll just give us a feel for where people are. Look at this. The upper Midwest is very well represented with 21 already. Oh yeah, definitely international, Tiffany. GoCo has big, powerful reach all over the place. They've got followers everywhere, rightly so. What? Nobody from Antarctica today? Nobody from Australia? But yeah, we're covering a lot of the bases here. So keep them coming. And let me give you all a high five because we've got 57 already who have put the answers in there. That's almost a third. Not too bad. I'll leave it here for just a minute so you can get it on to Menti. We're not doing it on Zoom chat because I just want to kind of get you warmed up on Mentimeter, give you a chance to use this tool. We're going to make a word cloud. We're going to have some rating scales and all sorts of stuff. And if you're doing Zoom chat, I may miss it. We won't be able to see it in the collective over here. So get warmed up on menti.com too. Code's at the top. It's also in the Zoom chat. I'll put it back in there because we've had a lot of comments since then. And we're looking to do the interaction as much as possible over here in menti.com. All right, thank you for doing that. You've mastered Mentimeter. Now, what I'm showing you here, this is sort of interesting to me because for some, this is old news. The Great Resignation came and went. You're feeling safe again. But for others, depending on the kind of industry you're in, depending on what's going on, you might have this actually just now peaking, or maybe it's brand new for you. There seems to be a bit of carryover effect that's happening. And so you may find yourself in the midst of the great resignation, depending on the industry. Now, the quit rate, a year ago, we were talking about it was at an all-time high. It's come down, but not all that dramatically. I think there are indicators that it will continue to come down. That's good news. But there are also lots of positions that are hard to fill, or you've got a hiring freeze. And so even if you're not in the great resignation, you have some stability, you may not be at the optimum numbers for operating your business. It's become harder to attract and retain talent. We're competing with the gig economy and all kinds of other things that take people away from what they might otherwise be doing. And the place where this is most experienced is being experienced is at mid-career level. So think people in their 40-ish something range. In other words, they've got a lot of experience. That means high value. They got pretty good number of years to go before they're thinking about retiring. These are the folks that you might want to be attracting and retaining. They might be your future bench strength and the ones who can mentor and help those who are more junior in experience to rise up in the organization. So the effects are still being felt in a lot of places, and they're multiplied by some of these other factors that are going on. So of course, that still translates. In a lot of places, there's still overload. It shows up as low morale or compassion fatigue in some industries, burnout. So we can't just say, great resignation, it's over, let's move on. We still have impacts that we have to deal with. And those impacts affect the way people feel about their work, the amount of work that they do, and their willingness and likeliness of staying with your business. But I'd kind of like to hear from you. Before I build on those ideas, I'd like to have you think about your own organization, think about here and now, these last couple of months of 2024. And these are scales. You're going to rate each statement. Do you strongly disagree over there on the left? Do you strongly agree? Or are you somewhere in the middle? These are slider bars. Give me a feel for what's going on so I can sort them out and know where to focus my attention here. We're in menti.com, and our code today is 54592536, all confidential. Nothing is trackable here. And I just want to get your honest ideas about what's going on in your organization. We're up to 175 attendees. So I'm looking for 175 responses, if you would, please, here on menti.com. Okay, the slider bars are moving around every time we get a new response. These are all pretty even. We don't have extreme highs or extreme lows. What that means, though, at least so far, is that it looks like we've got quite a few things to consider, quite a few challenges for HR folks to have to grapple with. You are still having turnover. You aren't getting as much productivity per employee. By and large, some of you may be on the strongly disagree side. Things are all good for you, but I'm looking at us collectively. Maybe it looks like you can see signs that employees are a little less committed than they used to be. I'm going to answer William's question. I am talking about both, William. However, when I talked earlier a moment ago about it's worse in some sectors and segments than others, it does seem to be that the turnover is higher with hourly employees because somebody else pays them a quarter more per hour and they might go there. So there is a bit of that going on, but what we're talking about is everybody. All right. I'm going to call this good news. Out of all 5 choices, the one, oh, no, I looked at it backwards, bad news. The one that seems to be worst for us is that employees are experiencing burnout and low morale for all these reasons. I thought we had a turnaround here. I got all excited for no reason. But look what's right behind that in terms of agreement. And that is that frontline managers simply don't have the tools and skills. It happens for a lot of reasons. They don't know what they don't know. They haven't been able to get training because, well, if you are short-staffed and you're working really hard to fill the gaps, you can't take the managers away from the front lines. You might be, in fact, putting them even more at the front line to do some of the individual contributor work, as opposed to having them do managerial work. And that is actually a surefire recipe for suppressing retention and engagement, because people need management. I'll show you more about that now that we know this is real and this is going on. So these are some stats, right? These are from late 2023, and they are current enough. I haven't seen anything. If you've seen something significantly different, tell me. But research hasn't caught up if that is different. We still have a lot of people thinking about switching jobs, leaving organizations. And if it's truly 52% of workers, that's over half your bench strength of this key demographic age group. We don't have levels of engagement that are as high as they used to be. Now, millennials take a lot of hard knocks. And I do think that it's not just millennials that have influence, right? That if they feel that way, other people are going to feel that way too, if for no other reason. But being disengaged, being distracted, that's not because they're millennials. I want to turn this around just a little bit. The hard knocks they get are things like, well, they grew up looking at devices and they grew up getting participation trophies. People sort of blame the way they were raised for their high levels of disengagement and distraction. But if you look at all the research and you look a little closer, it's not so much that as it's that millennials, they're passionate. They have a deep drive and a sense of wanting to belong and to contribute, and they want the work to be meaningful. And when the work is meaningful and they have a sense of belonging, they're not nearly as disengaged. They're not nearly as distracted. So it's not like some condition that's inherently attached to them and cannot be fixed. We have to attend to it. We have to be able to give them some ways to have that connection to the work. All right, now, it's not all organizations. The teams and organizations with higher levels of employee engagement experience less turnover. You can solve for some of these problems, and I'm just going to head off your immediate thought right here at the pass for those who are having it. It's not about pay. You might be trying, even with those hourly employees, you might be trying to increase pay in order to retain people. And if you are doing that, please know it's a Band-Aid solution. It's not going to take care of everything that you want to take care of. In fact, the association between salary and job satisfaction is pretty weak. There's only a little bit of overlap between the improvement in job satisfaction when you pay someone more. Sure, it feels good, they're happy, they decide to stay with you temporarily. And then what? The dissatisfaction creeps back in because it's about something else entirely. And although you might offer a nice wage, you're looking to be competitive in this job market, but what's going to keep people there? Why are they going to stay with you if somebody else offers them a higher wage? If you're truly hiring people who are only money motivated, you might be setting yourself up long term for failure because that wouldn't be sustainable. But it is really a lot of other factors, and I want to spend a bit more time talking about that. Before you pull the pay lever, make sure that you're also thinking about non-financial rewards. Now, what people are telling us these days, as you already know, is they want work from home. They want flexibility in their hours. They want opportunities to grow. They want to have mentors and other valued relationships that are dignifying and ennobling to them, but also help them to grow. And they want positive environments. They don't want to be in those places where it's go, go, go all the time, short staff, burnout, what have you done for me lately? There's got to be meaning, employee meaning. And when you have that, you can pay less. And if you doubt me, just think about nonprofits. Most nonprofits, most people who work within nonprofits accept that they're going to make less money than if they went into a for-profit organization someplace and did a corporate stint. They choose to make less money because for them, the work is really, really meaningful. So you want to be able to provide these opportunities and make sure that there are opportunities for growth. I'm giving you all the piece parts here to think about from HR, then we'll talk about managers and how to get them equipped. But look at that number. It's a pretty big number. Over 82% of employees are saying that if they don't see a career path, if they don't see an opportunity to grow, that doesn't even say that they're going to be promoted. If they don't see an opportunity to grow, to progress and learn new things for their capacity to be expanded, then they are going to consider doing something else, going somewhere else. So we have to make sure that we build that in. Now, I'm a trainer and I sell training and I do a lot of work about leadership development. So it pains me to say this, but I'm not talking about coming to someone like me and spending big bucks to make this happen. I want you to think about this. How many things inside your organization are you already doing that give opportunities to employees for growth and development? You ought to make a list. You're probably doing quite a few. Your LMS and the required courses, your annual review and setting of development goals, the mentoring, the onboarding. There are things you're already doing. Here's the problem. If they're not labeled and branded and marketed as we're asking you to do this for your own growth and development, they might miss that. And you might not get the credit. They might not feel that they have those opportunities inside your organization. Now, let me come back to pay for just a moment. I am fascinated by this research from Gallup, but I don't think we think about this for what it really means often enough. Research from Gallup, going back decades, but also repeated even recently, says that the reasons people leave organizations, there are 4 of them, I'll show those to you in just a moment. The top 4 reasons people leave organizations have nothing to do with pay. Pay is number 5 on the list. See, but Gallup does something different than what you do. What you might do is an employee is leaving, you have an exit interview, you ask, why are you leaving? And they say, I found a job that paid more money. And then you hear enough of those that you decide, hey, we've got to pay people more money if we're going to retain folks. Not true. This is what Gallup does. They go to people who recently took a new job and they say, what is it that made you go looking for a new job in the first place? And people give these 4 reasons before, more often than they say pay. So I decided to go looking for a job because I didn't have clear guidance. My manager didn't set expectations that were very clear. I didn't even know how to be successful. And so I went looking for another job. And yes, I found a job that pays more. And when I left that organization, they asked me why. And I just, I said, I found a job that pays more. So if we're doing root cause analysis here, these 4 reasons are given more often than I needed to make more money, and that's why I went looking for another job. And you'll notice, as you're scanning this list, you'll notice they have one common denominator, and it's the manager. The very same manager who we are taxing with all the frontline deliverables, driving the results that we need short-term today. We're focusing that manager in that silo, in that technical functional work, and they may not even know the importance of doing these really basic, essential managerial kinds of work. It creates a big void in an organization. You may also notice as you're looking at this that, those things probably wouldn't take all that much time. Setting clear expectations, giving regular feedback, having conversations about personal development and growth. Those things aren't necessarily going to completely take away from delivering on the frontline results. In fact, they'd probably save time. The time invested would probably save a lot of time in the long run. You don't have the same rework that has to be done. Mistakes aren't made. People aren't doing the wrong kinds of things. They're not missing the targets because they had to operate in ambiguity and make stuff up of their own. So it's really essential for managers to do this. Now, when we talk about employee engagement, especially managers outside of HR, they just think it's some lofty concept. They think it's about the mood of the employees on that day when they filled out the survey. So we should probably be defining employee engagement. We should be defining employee engagement the way, the one I like, it goes like this. It's got two pieces, they're cause and effect, and it helps to explain how managers can participate, how managers can contribute here. So the definition of employee engagement that I think is the most sound is that employee engagement is a heightened emotional connection that an employer feels for his or her organization. That's the cause, the emotional connection. And only when they feel that emotional connection, then it causes them to apply additional discretionary effort. See, make no mistake, every single day, every employee, every minute of the day, they get to pick, how hard am I going to work right now? How much effort am I really going to apply? And when they have high engagement, that is high emotional connection, they will apply more effort because they care. And when they aren't feeling it, they're going to be a little more likely to hold back, a little more likely to dial down how hard they're working. And either way, there's a contagious effect. If there's lots of emotional connection and lots of additional discretionary effort, other people pick up on that. More work gets done, more customers get satisfied, more employees stick around. It feels good to work in that kind of an environment. And the opposite is also true. And this has everything to do with the behaviors of a manager. What managers do, not what they think, not what they feel, although thoughts and feelings might drive actions, but employees can only see the actions. So if we want to impact the level of commitment to the team, to the organization, to the job, to the manager, to the colleagues, the manager's activities have to be deliberate and intentional. And it breaks my heart, but most managers have no idea. Nobody's ever told them what I'm telling you. But framed up this way, managers become a whole lot more invested in wanting to drive employee engagement. They become a lot more willing to find good training that will help them to have those tools they need to drive engagement. And then when you layer in a few other pieces, you can really get them going strong. But before I do that, let me ask you, we're going to make a word cloud. What do you do? It's all, remember, Mentimeter, it's 100% confidential. No way to tell who says what. But what do you do? Put in a word or a short phrase. This is going to make a word cloud for us. After you submit 3 of them, click the submit button, and let's see what we get up with. What do you already do to bolster employee engagement in your organization? This is going to be a great list with this many people participating. Remember, it's like any word cloud. If the words are getting bigger and bolder, it's because that word's been entered more than once. While you're doing that, I'm going to answer Isabel's question. I hope you don't mind, Kaylee. I'm just taking some of these as they come. It's true. This is not so new in nonprofits. It's been the case for many, many years where you simultaneously have high engagement, or rather, I'm sorry, high commitment and low engagement. And that's the real definition of burnout. People who sometimes care too much. They're over-invested. They lose sight of work-life balance. They care tremendously. I'm going to talk about veterinarians for a moment. maybe you aren't aware, but in the field of veterinary medicine, it's one of the fields that has one of the highest suicide rates out of any field. So imagine, right, a veterinarian. Sometimes there are euthanasias. Sometimes there are situations where you can't save the pet. Sometimes you're spending most of your day dealing with compassion fatigue. It affects everybody around you when these situations happen, and there's not much that you can do. And so very, very, very high commitment, true love for the clients and the pets. And yet there's a tremendous level of burnout that comes with that kind of work. So that isn't new. It is more widespread than it used to be. And that's a post-pandemic situation that's come with work from home and not being able to get interaction and connectivity with people without being able to do some of the things that you have on screen here, like regular staff meetings and being able to listen to people and having recognition and team meetings. Right? Those things are harder to do when people aren't together. And so getting creative and figuring out how to fill that void, or if you have a global team, one that's spread out in lots of places and people are highly engaged, except that they aren't getting any fuel. It's just the work. And so there are, these are questions that are very good questions that are still being figured out and still being worked on. And the short answer is this: engagement still matters, and we have to find new ways in these situations to try to build it, to relieve people from some of those burdens that they're carrying all by themselves. I'm going to be taking a screenshot of this list. This is fantastic. I advise you to scan this, take a screenshot, steal shamelessly from each other, because there are a lot of great ideas here that absolutely would build employee engagement without spending a single penny. So managers do have a responsibility for this. Managers have a responsibility for heightening the emotional connection. And it doesn't say rational. This isn't about pay. It's not about performance reviews or disciplinary measures. It's about emotional. How do I feel about this organization and the people I'm working with? Managers have a lot to do with how much discretionary effort is being applied. And it is about emotional, because emotional is 4 times more effective at driving that discretionary effort than any rational commitment. You might think of it as the difference between intrinsic, from within, motivation and extrinsic, all the levers you can pull outside of a person. I say it like this: you can light a fire underneath someone. Be careful, if you're constantly lighting fires underneath someone, you might be at risk of becoming a micromanager. Or you can figure out what's the internal spark that they already have, and how can you fan that flame? When you know people and you motivate them according to the things that matter to them, well, that's when you're getting the opportunity to make work meaningful. That's when you're leveraging that emotional connection that unleashes additional discretionary effort. Managers have to know people one-to-one, not just by job roles and titles, but the person. And the reason, here again, something managers often don't even know. The reason to do this isn't to get good scores on the survey. The reason to do it is because every business strategy, anything at all, can be more likely to succeed. It can be enabled by higher levels of engagement. Here's a roll up. And by the way, if you're someone who likes tons and tons of research, let's talk, because I like it too. And I'll be happy to provide you with all the ammo you need to make the case for employee engagement. But here's a roll up. It's from Gallup as well. Other independent studies show very similar findings. But if you want productivity, if you want higher levels of customer satisfaction and loyalty, if you want your sales numbers to go up and your expenses to go down, if for no other reason than you aren't hiring people constantly, if you want a higher profit margin, you need employee engagement. It's the solution. Now, next time you're talking to the C-suite, and if you were with me back in October when I presented here, we talked about this. You're presenting to the C-suite and you're trying to make the case for employee engagement initiatives like manager training. This is the stuff we ought to be talking about. We ought to be talking about hey, here's how we get higher profits. Here's how we improve productivity. We go back to root cause. We need our managers to be trained so that they know how to stop being micromanagers and to start being able to be true ennoblers and enablers who ignite that emotional connection. Intrinsic and extrinsic, let me dive on that for a moment. In business, probably because we are looking to be fair, we want to follow the policies and the guidelines, we want to be equivalent for everyone. So we use external tools. This is the raise pool. If you want to get the maximum 3%, you have to get a 5 on your performance appraisal. This is the disciplinary, progressive discipline policy that we have. If you want to stay off of the PIP, this is what you have to do. We use these external tools, positive and negative, over here on the left-hand side, extrinsic, to carrot and stick with people, positive or negative, but all from outside of them. And sure, it's harder, but there's something else that's going on that motivates people. It comes from their own experiences, their own beliefs, their own value system. All of that intrinsic motivation, we give it no more time and attention than putting into a job posting must be self-motivated. But I've known a whole lot of self-motivated people, myself included, who find themselves in environments that completely destroy that motivation. They take away from that motivation so that whatever you came in with is gone. We're not using it. We're not leveraging it if we don't even know what it is. Think about the people you work with, the ones you work most closely with. Why do they come to work? Why do they want to make that paycheck? Why do they care so much about certain tasks and projects? What's driving them? And if you were to really think about that for yourself or for others, there's a whole lot more going on there than, I don't want to get a poor performance review, I'd like to get a raise. There's more than extrinsic. So let me ask you this question. Out of that should say 4. There are 4 choices there. Out of these 4 choices, just like you did on the map earlier, stick a pin in it. Which one do you think is most motivating, most sustained, and most powerful? Is it upper left-hand corner? It's extrinsic and it's positive. Lower left, it's extrinsic and it's negative. Upper right-hand corner's leading the pack so far. It's intrinsic and positive, or intrinsic and negative is your lower right-hand corner. Which one is the most sustainable, the most powerful for most people? If you came in a little late, we're on menti.com. And it's 5459-2536 to be able to participate in the interactive slide that is completely confidential and super easy to use. I am looking at the chat. The way I defined employee engagement, it's a 2-part definition. And it goes like this. Employee engagement is the emotional commitment an employee feels toward their organization. That's the clause. If they feel that, only if, that emotional connection causes them to apply additional discretionary effort. So it's a 2-part definition. Emotional connection leads to additional discretionary effort. That's employee engagement. All right, we got 3 out of the 4 boxes covered. I think I'm going to surprise a few folks here. What we know from research is that, yes, most of you are right. If it's from within me and it's positive, that is the most motivating of all. That will sustain my interest, my attention, my focus, my drive longer than any other type of motivation. So my manager ought to know what that is. Why not? Why not leverage it? Why not use it as context? Hey, Deb, I'm asking you to do project X because I know you're really interested in the things that support helping homeless in our community. Make the links, help people to understand and dignify them, the things that matter to them or the things that you're helping them find opportunities within. Okay, well, second most motivating to people, and this is the thing that's going to surprise you, the second most powerful motivation for people is that lower right-hand corner. If I have had a bad experience, something negative, if I don't like something deeply, I'm afraid of it, something bad might happen, that's the second most motivating. It comes from within me. I have an aversion to it because of some negative association. That's the second most motivating. But see, we rely on these extrinsic ones, which are third and fourth, positive then negative on the extrinsic side too. And that's unfortunate because it means we're losing opportunities. We're not leveraging the most powerful tools of all. Now, I am not saying you should know the negative motivations and deep, dark secrets of every employee so you can turn the screws. Not suggesting anything manipulative here at all. But just know that that's what's going on. And sometimes when employees resist, sometimes it's not because they're trying to be insubordinate. Sometimes there's something real that's going on, that their own beliefs and their own experiences are causing them to react in certain ways. We've got to create new experiences and new beliefs to ever get them to a place where that motivation extrinsically is going to get them where we'd like them to be. Question from Tiffany: how would you suggest leadership buy into more employee engagement? Honestly, Kaylee, is that October presentation still available on a recording? Because we spent an hour talking about exactly that, Tiffany. So I'd encourage you to go back to it.
Yep, I can definitely share that in the chat.
Okay, thank you for that. All right, so what do we want managers to do? I call it the ease of intrinsic motivation. We want managers to know the intrinsic motivations uniquely, individually, of people who report to them. It's just a question, or it's an observation. It's an opportunity to get acquainted at a whole different level. And when you do that, you ennoble people. Not a made-up word. Ennoble means to make people feel worthy and important. So that's got to be personal. And we also obviously enable. Lots of managers know that their job includes enablement. Remove the barriers, provide the training, make the way easy for people. But we also have to encourage folks. You know, praise, appreciation, recognition, celebration. I saw it in the word cloud. Some of you are using that. But it's got to be not just the quarterly program or some award. It has to be in the day-to-day as well. And think about this. When do people need encouragement? They might like it at the end. High five, we got the job done. But they need it along the way. When the going gets tough, when the burnout is real, when there's a stumbling block that we've encountered, that's when people need encouragement. That's when they need their spirits to be bolstered. That's when they need someone to say, hey, I see you. I see your efforts. And they matter. Thank you for that. And then there's engagement. So simple things, just like you put in the word cloud, connecting with people in meetings, checking in about what's personal with them, finding out what's missing. What is it that we're not doing that would help you to feel more emotionally connected to the organization? You'll figure out the wording for that question, but that's what you're trying to discover. It builds trust. It creates connections. It creates a happier workplace and a culture that is more like what people want to survive and thrive in. And they then have opportunities to bring those emotional connections out. Something we haven't talked about directly that bears mentioning. It's the first bullet point on the list. This is going to be counterintuitive, but I promise you it's real, and it's backed by lots and lots of research. Managers, because they just don't know what they don't know, and they're well-intended, when they hear an employee is struggling, when they hear that an employee is feeling burned out or overworked, when they see, oh, we used to have 5 on the team, now we have 4 on the team, everybody's having to work harder. What managers often do is they protect people. They either step in and do the work, part of the work themselves, or they protect people from feedback, from expectations, from additional work, from training. I've heard lots of managers rail against training because we're too busy. But what they don't know is that by protecting people in those ways, they're depriving people of opportunities for growth and development. They don't mean to. This is all inadvertent, but they're taking away the very thing that for a lot of people is most motivating of all, the opportunity to grow, the opportunity to be seen as someone who can be trusted with higher level additional responsibilities. For a lot of people, the remedy for burnout is a new challenge, a new challenge that's just a little bit of a challenge beyond the current skill level. Dr. Csikszentmihalyi at the University of Chicago calls it being in the flow. You might be familiar with that research. But a challenge that's just a little bit of a stretch, not wildly beyond someone's current skill level, a little bit incrementally at a time, keeps people in the flow, which is like being in the zone where you've got that hyper focus and that peak performance, and it feels good to be doing that work. If we can give people experiences like that more often, well, then they begin to feel more trusted, more ennobled, they feel recognized, they feel valued, they see more meaning in their work, and they are emotionally committed to the organization. So having said that, I want to come back to what Crystal said a moment ago, the alignment of the employee engagement to the business needs. This is a balance. I know you can't be giving people stretch assignments and opportunities for emotional connection every minute of every day, but I also know we can do it more often than we are in most workplaces, and it's worth it. So I would ask you to think about it that way. It is work. It is work. It's a job. We pay people to do it because it's never going to be the thing that they would choose 8 hours of the day every day. But we can make it more than a job. Okay, so for managers to be able to do this, they'd have to have some training. They'd have to have some awareness, and they'd have to have tools for doing this. Your role, for those of you who are in HR, your role is to engage managers in that way, to first help them understand that their job is more than being the super doer. They are a supervisor. They can't just jump in, roll up their sleeves, and do the work of the frontline contributors, because that leaves a giant void of a gap. The expectations aren't being set, the feedback's not being given. Those top 4 reasons that people leave organizations, they happen because managers aren't doing that. They might not know that they really need to. So to make sure that they understand that piece, to make sure that you're not stepping in to do the dirty work for managers, because then you rob managers of their development opportunity and get in the way of the manager-employee relationship. And that managers are thinking about their own effectiveness as measured by the success and retention of their team. I'm a huge proponent, this is a whole different workshop, but I'm a huge proponent of people metrics for managers. See, we give managers metrics that are about the technical functional work that they do. That manager metrics are usually quite similar to the metrics for the team that they manage. Less often do we give managers metrics around people growth and development. X number of people were able to grow in these skills this year. Performance reviews and one-to-one meetings were conducted, and these outcomes for growth occurred. It's something like that, depending on the kind of work that you do. But people development metrics remind managers how important this work is. If all we do is talk about it and suggest it, but then we measure them on all the technical functional stuff, we are ensuring that people development gets put on the back burner, which is probably not what you intend. So being able to create this emotional commitment through managers, you can't do it all in HR. I've seen lots of HR folks try. It just doesn't work. But constantly for a manager to be thinking about people development, that helps you to retain employees. That helps you to create bench strength because you're developing emerging leaders. It improves your culture. It improves the clarity, expectations, feedback, et cetera, clarity. And it, with that sense of belonging, also creates a place where you're going to see more people using their voice. Right? One fuels the other. Ultimately, you're going to make the work more meaningful. Voila, employee engagement. So tell me, rank yourself, your organization. put the greatest need out of these choices. Which one is the greatest need in your organization? Whatever you put down at number 5, that would be the lowest need in your organization. I'll answer the question that Pravash just posed. It's a very good question. How do we hold leaders accountable when it comes to driving the culture of employee engagement? I'd need to know more about your organization to give you a very specific answer, but I'll tell you, in publicly held corporations, often it's the board that holds those senior leaders accountable. Sometimes it's accountabilities among the senior team themselves. If you have a succession management program, that's one way that you build it in. So there are lots of ways that you can do that. And with GoCo and tracking, you're able to start to look at some of this and to have systems that support ideals like we're discussing. Yeah. Keep them coming. This is for you. I enjoy knowing, but I'm almost at the end of the presentation, so I won't be able to react very much to this, but this is for you, so you can sort out, where would we start? What do we need? What I see so far, and I bet it doesn't change at this point, what I see so far is what I almost always see. The number one thing to do to unleash this sort of domino effect is to give that training to your managers and supervisors. Refresh it. Help them to understand the power that they really do have in their role, the impact that their role really has on the health and the long-term success of the organization. Yes, it takes a little time at first to have the training. It's an investment of time that pays off big dividends in the long run, because as they learn to delegate, for example, they'll be continually developing people and getting time back for themselves. As they set more clear expectations, they're going to have less rework and fewer mistakes and happier people who are retained. And that saves buckets of time and money in the long run. So yeah, do it. Train your managers, train those supervisors, and then think about your emerging leaders. And maybe it's even your senior leaders, because let me ask you one more question. This is all guesswork. What's the average age of people when they participate in leadership development programs? I'll show you the right answer in a moment, but let me just get your guesses first. The average age of people, anywhere between 0 to 75 years old. As you're working on this, I'll tell you part 1 of the research behind this, and that was going to CEOs in all different kinds of organizations. It was US based, and they asked the question, at what age do you think people should receive leadership development? And the average age given by CEOs was age 19. So some wanted it to be even earlier, some thought it would needed to be a little bit later, but the average desired age for people to get leadership development, according to CEOs, was age 19. But here's the reality. You nailed this. So some of you might have been on a webinar with me before. You cheated. But you nailed it. It's 42. That's the average age when people actually receive leadership development. That means that there are a whole lot of years, more than 20, years of mistakes being made that could have been avoided, missed opportunities if people had known how to be engaging, inspiring leaders. That's a big gap. And in that same gap, those 20 plus years, instead of knowing how to be leaders, people are guessing. They're feeling their own way. They're making stuff up because they have nothing else to work with. They're developing habits that are much harder to break later on than if they had just known from the beginning what really does make for an effective leader. Now, employee engagement is studied inside, outside, all the way all around in a lot of different places. And the work of Jim Kouzes and Barry Posner, some of you may know the Leadership Challenge work. It has 30 specific behaviors that are proven, absolutely proven to impact employee engagement. So if you're looking for specifics and for development, those 30 behaviors are really, really important. There is no other variable. It's not demographic, it's not tenure, it's not type of work. Leadership behaviors, manager activities impact engagement more than anything else. So here are some ways that you can access that. The QR code is going to take you straight to a page on People First Leadership Academy. That page is for manager and leadership development. And you'll see free classes, you'll see interactive workshops, you'll see online on-demand things that you can download. You'll see immersion experiences where people can come in and get a full scale, some's e-learning, some's public workshop. You can also bring me into your organization. They'll poke around in there, look at it. If you want to go to the whole site and also see personal effectiveness and team effectiveness, go to the website, peoplefirstpotential.com. I'll leave that up there for a moment. I know that Kaylee's got some things to share with you too, but we have time for maybe one or two questions. Kaylee, have I missed any along the way?
None really that I can see. Leah, put in the chat, how can we help develop existing managers to take ownership of roles versus wanting to be told what to do? Not sure if you had anything else that you wanted to touch on with that.
Yeah, it's about not knowing what they don't know, right? We can't hold them accountable. We can't ask for behavior change until they know why, until they know how. We're not going to give people personality transplants. The best training leverages the strengths that are already within an individual and helps them to see ways to apply that, including in the 30 behaviors. They are things, William, like treats people with dignity and respect, actively listens for diverse points of view, enlists people by showing them how their own long-term interests can be realized in service of the vision. So 30 very specific behaviors.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Deb. You mind if I share my screen really quick?
Go right ahead.
Perfect. Awesome. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining. And thank you, Deb, for an incredible presentation. I saw someone in the chat talk about how much they loved how interactive it was. And I just agree. It blows me away. I've never used Minty before you, and it's all I want to use now. So if anyone is interested to learn more about GoCo, I know Deb mentioned that we can look at, statistics and track employee engagement and how employees are feeling, things of that nature. If you want to learn more about GoCo, feel free to go to goco.io-coffee and we will set up a meeting with you. And then I'm also going to pop up a poll in case you want to just say there if you'd like to chat with GoCo or not. But we are just so thankful that you all joined today. And I'll let this poll go just for a second, and then I will share the ever so sought after SHRM and HRCI codes. So let's see, I'll end the poll now. Thank you all so much for answering that. Deb, thank you again so much for everything. I so appreciate it. Thank you all for being so engaging with the session and the Q&A. I think we had a lot of great questions and just a lot of great information from you, Deb. Is there anything you wanted to end on?
I just want to remind everybody that you can email me. You've got questions, you've got comments, you've got situations that are unique to your organization. And I don't mind. I really, really don't mind just having a conversation. I'm a researcher. I love this stuff. Here's my email address in the chat one last time. Kaylee and GoCo, thank you so much for bringing great people together.
Thank you so much, Deb. I would do a webinar with you every day if I could, and I love chatting with you. So yes, please feel free to email Deb, chat with her about all things people HR, and we will see you on our next webinar. Thank you everyone so much. Thank you, Deb. Have a great one.
You too. Bye-bye.